Number 3. Mikey Welsh. Mikey Welsh joined the American pop-punk band Weezer in 1998 after bassist Matt Sharp left. He played with Weezer on one album, their self-titled album, which is also known as the Green Album. The record featured the hits Hashpipe and Island in the Sun. Welsh quit the band in 2001 because he had a nervous breakdown and attempted suicide. He later checked himself into a psychiatric hospital. Welsh told a reporter he had a drug problem, along with undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder and borderline personality disorder. After leaving Weezer, Welsh took a break from music to launch a career as a visual artist. His art appeared on Burton Snowboards, and he did one of the album covers for the band Twin Berlin. On September 26, 2011, Welsh posted the following on Twitter. Dreamt I died in Chicago next weekend. Heart attack in my sleep. Need to write my will today. He later changed the date to the weekend after next. That was the same weekend he had planned on seeing Weezer live at Riot Fest in Chicago. Sadly, he wouldn't see the band perform on Sunday, October 9th. The day before, cleaning staff at the Raffaello Hotel tried to get into Welsh's room. Welsh hadn't checked out when he was supposed to. An employee managed to push the door open, and he found Welsh on the floor near the door. Sadly, the 40-year-old father of two was dead. In Welsh's room, the police found prescription drugs and a bag of white powder thought to be heroin. But the toxicology report came back inconclusive. Weezer performed at Riot Fest as planned and later wrote the following on their website. Today is a hard day for Weezer and all Weezer friends, fans, and family. While everyone is still in shock over yesterday's tragic loss of Mikey Welsh, we know damn well he would never have wanted to stop the rock at today's Riot Fest, the show he was planning on attending. On the contrary, the rock was what he loved, both in music and art. To play the show and play well tonight is to honor him and his memory. We have a feeling he will be watching. Number 2. Katherine Hobbs. Katherine Hobbs, who went by the name Kathy, lived in Oakland, California when she was young. Growing up, she had a difficult life. Her parents divorced when she was 8 years old, and she had been very close to her father. When Kathy was in the 7th grade, a good friend of hers died of heart disease, and she was devastated by the loss. Kathy's mother, Vivian, moved them to Las Vegas, Nevada to give Kathy a better environment to grow up. Kathy made new friends in her new city, and she blossomed. But she had long been plagued by the premonition of her own death. As a kid, Kathy told her family that she was going to die at an early age. When Kathy was 8 years old, her premonitions got more specific, and she told people that she wouldn't live past the age of 16. As her 16th birthday approached, Kathy was stressed out because the feelings that she was going to die became stronger. One day she was crying, and she told her mom that she didn't want to get older. Her mother said, "Kathy, we all have to grow up. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but we all do it." Kathy responded by saying, "I'm not going to." No matter what anyone said, Kathy was convinced she wouldn't live past her 16th birthday. As that day came closer, she spent more time in her bedroom and wouldn't leave the house. But then, on April 20th, 1987, she turned 16, and she had a renewed enthusiasm for life because she was still alive. It seemed that her premonitions weren't going to come true, and she started living a normal life. She started wearing makeup and thought about a career in beauty. She also started going out of the house to spend time with friends. 3 months later, on July 23, 1987, Kathy was at home with her mother. She was reading a romance novel in her bedroom, and she finished it. At 11 p.m., Kathy told her mom she was going to the supermarket to buy another book. The store was a block and a half away, and Kathy often walked there late at night. A group of Kathy's friends would hang out at their apartment swimming pool, so her mother, Vivian, as soon her friends would be nearby. At 3 a.m. that night, Vivian woke up suddenly and felt like she had been hit on the head. Then a peaceful feeling overwhelmed her and she fell back asleep. The next morning, Vivian was shocked to see that Kathy's bedroom was empty. She immediately called the police. The police assumed that Kathy had been abducted and they contacted the media for help. Local media broadcast her photo and a store clerk recognized her. She had come into his store on the night Kathy disappeared. The clerk had a receipt confirming that someone bought a novel at 11:17 that night. So the police knew Kathy made it to the store, but not home. But unfortunately, they had no other leads. Kathy's family went through her belongings and found letters addressed to each of her family members. They were dated 1 month before her 16th birthday. In the letter to her mother, Vivian, Kathy wrote, "Dear Mother, in the event of my death, you shall get this letter. I hope you live happily, and I don't want you or anyone else to dwell on my death. I love you all very dearly. You were good to me, and nobody else could have been a better mother. Keep me alive in your heart, and don't ever forget me. Love always, Kathy." 9 days after Kathy went missing, a hiker was looking for rock crystals in the desert near Lake Mead, which is less than an hour's drive from Las Vegas. He smelled something terrible close to the road. He looked around, and he found Kathy's body. The police found tire prints and 2 rocks with Kathy's blood on them close to her body. Kathy had died from blunt force trauma to the head. She had also been sexually assaulted. 3 months later, in October, someone left a voicemail with the police. The anonymous caller said he had just heard the news about Kathy because he had been out of town. He said they saw Kathy being dragged into a vehicle by 2 men on the night she disappeared. He said that she was screaming, and he pulled over to look at what was going on. He heard one of the men call out "Robbie" to the other man. He saw this near the store where Kathy was last seen, and he correctly described what she was wearing. The caller even had the license plate number of the kidnapper's car. The police searched the database for the license plate, but they didn't find anything. The police thought that Kathy was kidnapped shortly after leaving the store by 1 or 2 people and then driven to the lake and killed that night. But that was all the police knew for nearly a year. In March 1988, 30-year-old police officer Paul Halsey Jr. was trying to arrest a man who was driving a stolen red Corvette in Beaumont, Texas. Little did he know, but the man he was trying to arrest was serial killer Michael Lockhart. Halsey confronted Lockhart in the motel where he was staying, and Lockhart shot Halsey right there in the room. Another guest heard the gunshot, so he went to check it out and found Halsey dead, so he ran to the front desk to call for help. Lockhart fled in the stolen car, but police officers spotted the car on the highway and started chasing him. Lockhart ended up crashing the car in Orange, Texas, and then he ran on foot. He found a taxi, and he asked the driver to take him to Houston. But the police pulled the taxi over, and Lockhart said, "Oh, well, I guess I'm going to jail now." Lockhart was promptly arrested and charged with capital murder. At the time, Lockhart was wanted for murder in 2 different states. He had sexually assaulted, murdered, and mutilated 16-year-old Wendy Gallagher Griffith in Indiana on October 13, 1987. Lockhart had bound and gagged her and stabbed her 21 times. Wendy lived with her mother and her sister, and sadly, her sister was the one who found the body. Lockhart was also wanted for sexually assaulting, murdering, and mutilating 14-year-old Jennifer Kohlhauer in January 1988. He had raped her and stabbed her to death in her parents' home in Tampa, Florida. Lockhart had committed several other crimes, including sexually assaulting his former wife, attacking and robbing a woman at knife point, and robbing several banks. The police also believe that Lockhart is responsible for Kathy's death. Receipts show that Lockhart was in Las Vegas at the time of the murder. It's believed that he was driving a car that he had stolen in Toledo, Ohio. After the murder, it's believed he changed the plates to avoid being captured. The police searched the car he had stolen. They found blue fibers that were similar to blue fibers that were found at the crime scene. Lockhart was questioned about Kathy's murder and he denied committing it. He never went to trial for her murder, but it's believed that he killed her. Lockhart was tried in Texas for the murder of Paul Halsey, and he was convicted. He was sentenced to death, and he died by lethal injection on December 9, 1997. The identity of the second man, possibly named Robbie, who may have been involved in Karen's abduction, is unknown. The police also don't know the identity of the mysterious caller who witnessed Kathy being kidnapped. But regardless, the police consider Kathy Hobbs' case to be closed. Number 1. Pistol Pete Maravich. Pete Maravich was a legendary American basketball player. He was a prolific scorer, and he was well known for his flashy style on the court. He was a fantastic passer and ball handler. Maravich had the urge to be the best guard in the game, partially because of his dad. His father, Press Maravich, played in the NBA, and later he was a basketball coach at several universities. There's no doubt that Pete Maravich made a name for himself. During his time at Louisiana State University, he went on a scoring rampage. Maravich achieved nearly every major NCAA scoring record, including highest career scoring average, most career points, most field goals made and attempted, and most career 50-point games. He was bestowed with the nickname Pistol Pete in college because he would shoot the basketball from his side and look like he was holding a revolver. He started his professional career with the Atlanta Hawks in 1970. He racked up a lot of points during his first few years there, but the team had mediocre seasons. In the 1973-1974 season, Pete Maravich had his highest scoring NBA season up to that point with 27.7 points per game. Maravich was a highly entertaining player. He mastered behind-the-back passes thrown from 30 feet. He could dribble between his legs with either hand. He even performed pirouettes. But he had critics who thought he was too flashy. He scored a lot during the games, and some people thought he was a selfish player. Some fans labeled him a hot dog, which describes a player who likes to show off. During a 1974 game, someone had hung up a banner that said, "Pistol Pete, why do hot dogs cost $2 million in Atlanta and only 50 cents in Philadelphia?" After that, Maravich talked to a reporter for the Beaver County Times of Pennsylvania. Beaver is only about 10 miles away from where Maravich grew up in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. To the reporter, he said, "I don't want to play 10 years in the NBA and die of a heart attack at the age of 40. Little did he know that's exactly what his future had in store for him. After Atlanta, Maravich played with the New Orleans Jazz. The 1974-75 season was not a great year for Maravich, and his team was the worst in the league. But the 1976-1977 season was a great season for him. He played in 73 games and scored an average of 31.1 points per game, which was a career best. But then he was on the sidelines for the next two seasons, primarily because of knee problems. He played 17 early season games with the Utah Jazz in 1979, but then in early 1980 he was placed on waivers. He was picked up as a free agent by the Boston Celtics. He finally had to retire after the 1979-1980 season because of his bad knee. In his 10-year career, he was a 5-time All-Star, and he was twice named All-NBA First Team. He was elected to the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 1987. In retirement, Maravich ran basketball camps in Florida and near his home in Louisiana. He also worked as a basketball broadcaster for the USA Network. He also became a born-again Christian. That's what brought him to Los Angeles, California in January 1988. He came to do an interview with a Christian radio program called Focus on the Family. On January 5, 1988, James Dobson, founder of Focus on the Family, invited Pete to play basketball with him and other staff members. This was the first time in more than a year that Maravich had played a game. After about 45 minutes, they all took a break. During the break, Dobson and Maravich were talking on the court. Maravich was saying that he feels great and he wanted to play recreational ball. Dobson turned around to get a drink of water and Maravich collapsed and started seizing. Dobson tried to keep Maravich's airway open, but he could see that Maravich wasn't going to make it. Pete Maravich was rushed to the hospital and doctors tried for 50 minutes to resuscitate him. It was later determined that Maravich suffered from cardiac problems that he wasn't aware of. Tragically, Pete Maravich died precisely how he said he didn't want to in the 1974 interview. He played in the NBA for 10 years and then died of a heart attack at the age of 40. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.